It is Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program. You can bring up anything that's on your mind here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio here tonight, you've got Ian.
And Arya.
And nobody.
Welcome back, Arya.
Thank you.
Just had a email come in today from Thomas Knapp, who's a longtime libertarian activist, and he said he'd been waiting and just had to ask the question, is Arya ever going to come back? I guess he didn't hear the episodes on which we were already asked that, I guess, by a caller or two here and there, and we said no. I said to him, no, she just had surgery a few weeks ago. It's a throat surgery, so that's why you haven't been able... Because usually if you cut yourself open, you can be on the radio, but you did the one thing that makes it pretty difficult to be on the radio. You couldn't even talk at all for how long?
I was officially not allowed to speak for about 3 weeks. And I mean, as you can hear now, my voice isn't 100% still.
Yeah.
It's recovering, but for the first 3 weeks now, I could not speak at all. And if I attempted to, like if I had to yell at my dog or something, there was no sound whatsoever. It was really eerie.
You couldn't even whisper, right?
Right.
Wow. I can't imagine being around you and you not talking.
Dude, for 3 weeks, it is so hard not to say a word for 3 weeks. Like, I dropped a porcelain bowl on my foot, and this was like 2.5 weeks into it, so I was so trained at that point that I didn't even attempt to yell. But just fighting that instinct to say something to other people, it's so difficult.
Because you could, like, injure yourself, right, in that time frame if you were to?
Yeah, I could have ripped the stitches, or whatever it was they did.
Okay.
I could have undone it, basically, and had to redo it all from the beginning.
Do you want to talk about why you had a throat surgery?
Well, it's vocal feminization surgery and Adam's apple removal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had forgotten that you'd done that part.
Yeah, so they just did both of the things at the same time.
Okay.
But it was really bizarre, right? I've never had any sort of major surgery, so I was just lying there talking to the people, and the next thing I know, I was waking up like 3 hours later. And they asked me a question. What kind of a jerk move is that? This person, groggy, not allowed to speak. The first thing that happens is you ask them a question. Really, dude? The first thing you should say is, okay, don't speak, but are you okay?
Have the No Doubt song playing.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Don't speak.
All right, so welcome back. Obviously, you can take it as easy as you want here on the air. I don't know how you've probably never talked 3 hours straight for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
No.
Obviously, you're on our third seat here tonight. It's probably going to be a while before you're going to return to the main hosting role, but whenever you're ready for it. Obviously, we'd love to have you back doing that, but it's good to have you back.
Thanks, it's good to be back.
And I was saying, before the show, I mean, you've been sitting out there for at least 4 weeks, I think, recovering, and it's got to be hard when you see all this crazy news. You can't even comment on it unless you're, updating your social media profile.
I was doing that, but not very often. I mean, I did start back blogging, but that was like yesterday after I was like, I cannot take it anymore. I have to weigh in on this. But
yeah, so there's a lot to weigh in on. I've got a ton of stuff here, like way more content than we can even get through, but I wanted to talk about the sort of the main thrust of our coverage on Free Talk Live in the last week of this Ukraine, because we were doing People's Convoy for like 3 weeks straight. And then all of a sudden, the war in Ukraine thing just took over. And
not the People's Convoy, but the Canadian Truckers Convoy.
We talked about the People's Convoy as well.
American.
Yeah, the People's Convoy is in the process. I believe it's in Missouri tonight. That's where they're stopping off, so they're over halfway.
What is this? That's the first I've heard about any of it.
Do you want to explain it?
Well, the People's Convoy is apparently an American analog of the Canadian Truckers Convoy.
Curious.
And,
I've been watching the news every day and haven't seen a word about it.
Yeah, they don't talk. They were talking about it in the news a little bit before it was happening. They were talking about the fortification of D.C.
That's true. It did get a little bit of coverage.
Yeah, but
that's true.
When it actually started happening, I guess they stopped talking about it.
Yeah, it started in California, and it's going to be an 11-day journey. So they're really taking their time.
What are they aiming to do?
Well, I think there's a website, and basically they want any kind of national mandates regarding COVID to be repealed. So one of those would definitely affect the trucker industry, where there's now a mandate that says if you're an international driver, meaning if you're coming from or going in or out of the United States, Canada, or Mexico, you have to be vaccinated.
Right.
So that's something I think they want to repeal. They also want any kind of national mandates repealed. So I presume that would include the airplane mask mandates and things like that. So whatever federal level kind of stuff has been put in place, which hasn't been a whole lot, but there are some things. And ultimately, it's just sort of like, get back to the Constitution, that kind of talking point stuff.
Yeah, because that worked so well the first time.
That's never going to happen, obviously. But they're targeting D.C., so after 11 days, they're going to end up in D.C. That was a plan. There was another one, the Freedom Convoy 2022. I don't know if you remember that one, nobody. But there was, like, at the beginning of this thing last week, we were confused because there was the People's Convoy, which was starting on the 25th, I think it was. And then there was...
Did they really call it the People's Convoy?
Yeah, that's the website.
Like the People's Democratic Republican Convoy?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It sounds pretty lefty.
But it's not. It's all right-wingers.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, of course. Like, how many lefty truck drivers are there out there?
Well,
yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
You don't find that many working-class lefties.
Right.
Ironically.
So they are out there, but... so at the same time this thing was kicking off, it was actually, I think, the 23rd when they started the People's Convoy. There was also news about this other convoy, which was also supposed to start in California, but 2 days later on the 25th, and only take like 4 days to get from California to Washington, D.C. by the 1st. So they're supposed to arrive tomorrow. Well, and we played the video from that guy who's one of the purported organizers, who a lot of people are saying looks like a federal agent.
Oh, I'm sure.
He's like being recorded in D.C. making videos about this Freedom Convoy. Well, he has now announced that the Freedom Convoy has been rolled into the People's Convoy. So the Freedom Convoy never happened. It's now part of the People's Convoy, and so he still says he's going to have a rally on the 1st, but the People's Convoy isn't expected to arrive in D.C. until the 5th. So there's still several more days before this thing actually gets to D.C.
And my understanding is they're not planning on actually entering D.C., which may be...
Some are, some aren't.
Okay. Which, I don't know. I think that's probably a good plan because, the government in D.C. is pretty bloodthirsty.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've already talked about bringing in extra cops, and National Guard members are at the ready for this. So they're going to handle
truckers?
it. Yeah, they're going to handle it very differently than Ottawa did, I suspect. But yeah, one guy was
Well, they're even more cowardly.
Oh, yeah. And more well-armed.
True.
The one of the truckers was talking about what do they call it? That loop that goes around D.C. I'm forgetting.
The Beltway.
Talking about doing something on the Beltway. He wasn't really clear about what he had in mind, but I don't know if it's going to be like a rolling roadblock or what they're going to do there. But he had.
Didn't they oppose that sort of thing when Black Lives Matter was doing it? Back during
they
the Obama?
did.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Although
funny how that works.
Yeah, although interestingly, apparently they were not completely blocking roads in Canada. I don't know what they're going to do in the U.S. But yeah, there was now they were blocking the bridge in Canada, which I think a lot of people would have really objected to had it been Black Lives Matter. But yeah, it's the normal hypocrisy that you expect on both the left and right fringes of the political spectrum.
That's a good point. I imagine the left right now is like, good, just run them over, plow right through them or whatever.
Oh yeah, and actually somebody did plow through 4 of them in Canada. Which,
really?
Didn't you don't remember that? There were
somebody got run down.
The 4 people got hit,
Jeez.
not in Ottawa, but in one of the other cities where it was going on.
The number, if you want to join the show, 603-283-6160. We're going to talk about the crypto aspect of what's going on right now with the Ukraine situation, because crypto got a lot of coverage in the Canadian protests with the truckers and the Freedom Convoy.
And made some important converts.
Yeah, absolutely. There's more coming up here. The number is 603-283-6160. You can join the show. Bring up whatever's on your mind. It is Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, you can join us here. The number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's Ian, Aria, and nobody in the studio here tonight. And we're going to talk about how cryptocurrency is having a real impact on yet another international situation.
I bet Putin's wishing he hadn't banned cryptocurrency now.
Yeah, I bet he's wishing that his government had actually bought some.
Yeah. Or earned some.
They did apparently get a bunch of gold, I think, at one point. So that was probably a smart move. But you can join us here. The number 603-283-6160. Bitcoin.com is where you can go to learn about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. By the way, there's been a huge run-up in the Bitcoin price in just the last 24 hours. Last 24 hours, it's up 14, almost 15%.
Sounds like war.
Well, I mean, at the beginning of the war, it went down to like $34,000 or $33,000.
Well, that was people panicking, right?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you don't know what this thing's going to do. Bitcoin does what it wants. It doesn't care about what the world is doing.
That's true.
But up big time today. So, it's still down from its record high of 68,000. So technically it's still on sale if you want to look at it that way. Anyway, go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page, and you can learn some of the basics. Like, what is decentralization when it comes to money? Why does that matter? What is blockchain? These are some of the concepts you can get a handle on at Bitcoin.com. And if you're not brand new to crypto, you want to get the latest news headlines, they've got those over at news.bitcoin.com. Now, Aria, you had told me off the air tonight that you've been reading mainstream news about this Ukraine situation. And what is the impression that you have so far?
Well, remember, I preface this by saying, it's probably propaganda, or there's a good chance. But this Zelensky dude, they're painting him as just this really awesome figure. And when I see these headlines and I see these pictures, I'm like, man, that's a leader, where he's like, I need ammunition, not a ride. I'm like, yeah, dude. And it makes perfect sense. Americans are like, hey, we'll get you out of there. I can imagine the cowardly American politicians, if there was an actual war, an invasion of the United States, they'd be cowering in their bunkers or whatever. But this Ukrainian president, they're painting him as just this soldier, this war hero now.
And it's straight up fake.
It is, but
because and you mentioned like those stories, and they are always accompanied by these images of him like wearing camouflage, and he's got like a helmet on.
I mean, and that's why I assumed it was all propaganda, because if you're hiding out there defending against the enemy, who's got time to stage a photo shoot, man? Really?
That's because the photos were taken last year when he went down to Crimea and inspected the border. There were a bunch of pictures taken with him in a flak jacket and him in a helmet, and now they're trotting those out as though they're brand new. And it doesn't take long to just do a little bit of research and Google image search and find the original stories where these things appeared back as far as April of 2021. And in that same vein, Miss Ukraine, Anastasia Lena, has been photographed, and pictures of her are showing up with her carrying a rifle.
I did see that one, and I immediately was like, that's an airsoft gun.
Oh, you even knew? Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that it's an airsoft gun, but apparently she was a former military member.
Okay.
I've heard.
Well, then why would they give her an airsoft gun?
Because she's a dumb bimbo? I don't know, man.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, like, there are guns around. Why don't you just give the girl a real gun for the photo op? But no, she's got an airsoft rifle. And I saw one image of this girl where she's just kind of standing there toting the weapon. And now more images.
Can you really call an airsoft rifle a weapon? It's more like a toy.
It does shoot things.
That's true.
You could put an eye in or something with it if you hit somebody just right.
Take out a very small bird. Yeah.
You can fire steel balls with them if you want to.
Can you really?
So I'm told.
I've never used one, so I have no experience.
Nor have I.
But yep, she's got the same airsoft rifle in these other images where she's laying down and she's aiming the gun. Well, purportedly aiming the gun, as some have observed. She's got her rear sight is flipped down, so she can't properly.
Take some stones to go into combat with an airsoft rifle.
Right. And she also took the time to do her makeup before she went into the field there. So obviously,
well, that's understandable.
This is not combat in any way, shape, or form. And the pictures were also taken last year or prior to that, right? Like, these are old pictures. These have nothing to do with what is going on today. So there's so much propaganda out there. And that's important point here is like that one of the most interesting things about this is a war happening where finally we can get both sides, quote unquote, right? Like, you can get the Western propaganda.
And both sides are feeding us lies.
Of course. And
both sides are insane as far as I can tell.
And you can get the side of the Russians, and you can get all kinds of other opinions about this. Unless, of course, you live in a country where they ban the Russian media, and that is what is in the news today and yesterday. RT, we know it stands for Russia Today, and they're like the BBC of Russia, right? So it's a government-funded news operation.
Well, Russia Today is involved with Russia? You think?
Shocking, right?
Isn't all Russian media state propaganda?
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah. Every time I ever, like, you remember
there are independent bloggers in Russia, but they are few and far between and operate at their own peril.
But television broadcasts in Russia seem to be all state-run. Remember when they came to interview you?
Yeah.
That was a state operation, wasn't it?
Yeah, the state of Russia has personally made fun of me.
Wow.
It's true. It was during...
I still don't think we should ban them from the United States or European Union or Australia.
No, they should be able to make fun of anybody they want to.
Yeah.
Including themselves.
Yeah.
And the fact is, RT does good reporting on the United States. They do rock-solid, critical reporting. They ask the tough questions.
The American media is not going to.
No, exactly. Now, they don't do it when it comes to Russia, but you know what you're getting when you go to RT. Yeah. But according to, RT, Australia is now suspending RT's broadcast, and so is the EU. So Australia's satellite operator Foxtel notified RT Saturday that it is suspending the channel's broadcast distribution in Australia as part of its services, quote, in view of concern about the situation in Ukraine.
How does this work in the age of the internet? Just go to RT.com.
Well, we know that Australia has internet filters. Now, I don't know if the Australian government is filtering RT, but years ago they put in internet filters in Australia, quote unquote, to fight, child abuse imagery or whatever it was. But then, they've expanded from there.
Oh, of course.
And Britain has some controls as well because they were filtering porn. Just regular porn, I think they were.
If you didn't have like the right pass system or something like that, there's some sort of adult access. I don't know what it is, some kind of system that they are mandating in the UK. I think that's what's tied into that.
So that's pretty horrific because once you have that, you can expand your blocks from, whatever they start out as to whatever you want them to be.
We got more coming up here. I'll tell you more about the bans because, again, it's also the European Union is also prohibiting RT and also Sputnik, which is another Russian-based news agency that does more radio broadcasts. There's more on the way here. You can join the show. The number 603-283-6160. Then we'll get into how cryptocurrency is jumping into all this conflict with the Ukraine. More coming up.
The Shire Free Church offers a sanctuary to those seeking an escape from state churches.
The Shire Free Church is an interfaith, diverse group of people that may not share identical theological beliefs. As a member in or minister of the Shire Free Church, you are a sovereign individual and may be the faith of your choice.
We don't claim to have all of the answers.
We are open to all peaceful people.
We want to learn from each other.
What unifies the Shire Free Church and its diverse members is peace,
love, and liberty. There are many paths to God, one for every individual.
The Shire Free Church does not define a specific path beyond those parameters that must be your foundation.
Peace as your way,
love as your guide,
and liberty as your light.
Learn more at church.shiresociety.com.
That's church.shiresociety.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The first round of talks between Ukrainian and Russian officials ended today with an agreement to meet again. But the Russian bombardment of Ukraine is continuing, with horrifying stories emerging of civilian deaths and an indiscriminate military campaign to topple the government of President Volodymyr Zelensky. It's cost scores of lives in Kiev and the northeastern city of Kharkiv. President Putin told French President Emmanuel Macron that he wants Ukraine to recognize Russian sovereignty over Crimea and agree to become a neutral state. Vasily Nebenzia is Russia's ambassador to the United Nations.
Today, President Putin spoke to President Macron, and he listed those conditions that we demand from Ukrainians. And they are well known, as I said, demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, commitment to its neutral status, not to join NATO and not to move weapons to our borders.
President Zelensky responded by signing membership papers for the EU, and the European Union says it will consider Ukraine's application. In Moscow today, financial disarray, the ruble collapsing in value, the stock market closed, the central bank raising interest rates as high as 20% after Western sanctions threatened to paralyze financial activity. In Brussels, efforts to head off the impacts on Europe, as FSN's Rebecca Bunden explains from our bureau there.
EU energy ministers have actually been meeting today here in Brussels to discuss how to diversify away from Russian oil and gas supplies, how to deal with any price shocks which they are expecting. They can deal with this in the short term, they can deal with some short-term shocks, but the problem is the longer term. How will they manage those issues?
President Biden spent 80 minutes on the phone today with Western leaders. We may not hear from him in person until his State of the Union address on Tuesday night. But at the State Department, spokesman Ned Price.
Diplomacy at the barrel of a gun, diplomacy at the turret of a tank, that is not real diplomacy. We are ready and willing, just as our Ukrainian partners are, to engage in real, in substantive, in genuine diplomacy in order to see if we can find a way out of what is a needless, brutal conflict.
In other Ukraine developments, FIFA and UEFA suspended all Russian teams from all competitions. The UN says more than 500,000 Ukrainians have fled the country, and many more will soon follow. And Britain's regulator is expanding its review of Kremlin propaganda channel RT, already banned throughout the EU. In other news today, the US is sending what it calls an unofficial delegation to Taiwan, a move sure to irritate China, and the UN said today some global impacts of climate change are now irreversible. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open. If you want to join the show, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And to our knowledge, our channel, thankfully, has not been banned from satellite broadcasters. But in Australia, one of their major satellite providers, Foxtel, has now notified RT as of this weekend, RT being Russia Today, that they are suspending their broadcast distribution. Foxtel is a satellite operator that covers all of Australia's territory and has its own what's called over-the-top server, allowing media services to be offered to the audience directly via the internet. And they have about 3.8 million clients.
I feel pretty sure that if we were on in Australia, they would have canceled us during COVID.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, I mean, they went pretty hardcore.
It probably still are. I haven't heard much from Australia recently.
That's because they went so hardcore that it's just a media blackout.
You're welcome to weigh in here if you want to, but on Thursday, Poland removed RT along with some other Russian broadcasters from its cable and satellite networks, as well as internet platforms.
Is this so that people in the West can be as cut off from what's happening in Russia as Russians are cut off from what's happening in the West?
Well, I mean, it's clearly the reason why they're doing it is because they don't want their people to hear any other side besides the mainstream media propaganda that they want to shove down their throat. And RT is counter to that.
I mean, that's straight up North Korean tactics.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's and the thing is, I think in this case, Putin is probably in the wrong. I mean, just.
From what I can
Nobody
tell,
invaded his country.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's usually my criteria is who, you know, if somebody dies in war, the question of whether they were a terrorist or a freedom fighter generally comes down to whose territory were they on.
Well,
were they
now,
on their own territory or somebody else's?
The question is...
To the Russians, they are on Russian territory right now.
Well, right. So the question is, what is really happening? Because if what is happening is Putin is invading all of Ukraine and rolling tanks into all the major cities and, you know, bombing buildings or whatever, then that's, you know, clearly an act of war. But if what is happening is what the Russians are claiming was happening, which is they are only going into the provinces that have declared independence, the Donbass areas of Luhansk and what's the other one? Donetsk.
And where the Nazis are trying to exterminate the Russian loyalists or whatever they're being.
Well, the story
they're
is
saying something to that effect.
The story is in 2014, these areas declared independence. And now Putin is acknowledging their independence and is saying, okay, you guys want some help because the Ukrainian government has been bombing you for the last 6 years and attacking your people. We're going to bring in some troops to help you out. But at the same time, it then expanded from just going to help those regions to we're going to, quote unquote, demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. So it's not just that they're going into those two areas, but it's that they're targeting the Ukrainian military, and they say they're not targeting the civilians. So, like, I see what you're saying, Nobody, that, yeah, that definitely certainly seems like an aggressive act, but if it was indeed to defend an independent area, does that change how you feel about it?
If they limited it to those areas, then yeah, and if indeed the majority of the people in those areas are preferring the Russians to the Ukrainians, then yeah, that would alter my feelings about it. I mean, I'm not a big fan of democracy writ small, by which I mean letting, the majority micromanage the affairs of the minority. But if what you're deciding is what government is our region going to be under, if any, you almost have to defer to the majority, because where else can you go?
Yeah.
There's no other criteria. If the majority of people want to live in Islamic caliphate, for example, in a particular area,
your best bet is to leave.
Then they should have that. What I would ask is let the people who don't want that leave and let them go someplace else. And if other people in other places want an Islamic caliphate, be willing to accept them.
Right. And
let us send people who are trying to turn America into a caliphate. Not that I think that there's a lot of people doing that, but if we do find people who are trying to turn America into a caliphate, then you should be willing to accept that, because those are the people aligned with you.
In other news, according to RT, the Russian military has been offering safe passage for evacuation from Kyiv. Moscow urging civilians to evacuate from the Ukrainian capital.
This is why they don't want us to have access to RT, right? It's because then we hear stuff like that, which kind of conflicts with the mainstream media's approach that, now the Russia's talking about throwing nukes.
Yeah.
Well, the chances of the Russians throwing nukes at the Ukraine are slim to none.
Correct.
Only because of, wind.
Fallout.
Yeah, I mean, that they would be nuking themselves.
And there's plenty of Russians in Ukraine.
Well, they also want to take over Ukraine. They don't want to annihilate it.
They don't want scorched earth. And
Right.
So they want something to roll over. They want subjects to roll over, in theory.
The nuke stuff seems to be just straight up fear-mongering. I mean, we all understand mutually assured destruction, and you can better believe Vladimir Putin understands that as well.
Yeah.
Right? So, the odds that are going to happen seem very, very slim.
Yeah, but that's not what the media is saying.
No, of course not. They want to whip this guy up as though he's the new Hitler, and they literally had him with a Hitler mustache on the front page of Drudge Report over the weekend.
Oh, wow. They should have used Trudeau for that.
Well, they did that. They've done that
good.
People are spray painting Adolf Putin on sides of buildings and stuff. Yeah, I mean, they're going all out.
There seem to be, interestingly enough, protests against the war in Russia.
Yes, that's right. I've got a story about that, too, where they are absolutely cracking down, purportedly, on these anti-war protests in Russia.
But is this the Western media just taking, 4 people, calling it a protest, and then going, hey, look, Russia's against the war?
It looks large.
I mean, of course, and again, this is the problem of living in the world in which we live, is that there are no trustworthy sources of information, literally none. and that's unfortunate because I've seen images of very large protests, what purport to be very large protests
Maybe they
in
were actually
Russia,
protesting.
but they might not be in Russia, and they might not be for that reason.
Yeah, they may be from the 2012 invasion of Georgia or whenever it was.
Well, that's another good point. There's a lot of video that's being passed around on social media as though it just happened yesterday. That's as old as several years of, oh, look, the Ukrainians are attacking the Russian tanks with Molotovs. No, that's from 2014 or whenever it was, right? Like these things are not really happening now. And that's another interesting point.
They might be happening now, but those images aren't real.
But that's the thing. Ukraine still has internet. So if there is in the streets fighting going on, there would be videos coming out that are fresh from this conflict.
Yeah, it'd be all over Twitter.
Almost nothing.
I'm pretty sure that if I was out shooting at Russians, I wouldn't be posting videos of it because I wouldn't want to be giving up information on my location, on what I was doing, on who I was.
Yeah, but there's innocent bystanders. I mean, that's one of the issues with war. There's civilians out there who be like, oh my God, this is what's happening right now.
That's just the world we're in right now. Somebody's going to, if they don't have a gun in their hands, they're going to have a camera in their hands, and they're going to record what's going on.
I mean, where are the tweets? Y'all, these Russian tanks just went down my street.
Yeah.
I'm so scared. Where are all the tweets, man?
I didn't see the video, but there was apparently one of our co-hosts earlier a few days ago said they saw a video of a new tank man, of an alleged Ukrainian man standing in front of a Russian tank. And then the Russian tank tries to zigzag around to avoid hitting the guy. I'm like, well, okay, so clearly they're not attacking the civilians, right? Because if they were attacking the civilians, they would have just gone ahead and taken that guy out rather than try to go around him.
Well, compare it to what they were doing in Afghanistan when they would slowly roll tanks over people feet first in order to get information out of them. Yeah, that was the Russians.
There's more coming up here at 603-283-6160. You can share your thoughts. Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing thing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. We'll get into your phone calls here. With you tonight, it's Ian,
Aria,
and nobody.
Don't forget, you can join us online anytime you want. Head over to freetalklive.com, and you can join our Matrix chat server. Matrix is a decentralized, federated chat system. It's self-hosted, so we're running the server. And it allows you to interact with other Free Talk Live listeners, as well as people from other Matrix chat servers around the world. It's a pretty cool system.
The Matrix is real.
Yes.
Even if you want to post forbidden content like from Russia Today.
That's true. You can do that there over at chat.freetalklive.com. We're going to go to your phone calls and thoughts. You can bring up whatever's on your mind. Again, the number is 603-283-6160. We go to Stephen. He's calling us from North Georgia. Stephen, you're on Free Talk Live.
Which Georgia?
The Georgia where they wear overalls and say really mean words based on your skin color.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that still popular
that the Russian
there?
one?
Do you think that that Georgia is still, and this is America, Georgia, of course. Do you see a lot of racism in your everyday life in Georgia?
Absolutely, I do.
That's too bad.
Did you move to Georgia, Stephen? Or are you from Georgia?
On and off. Like, my parents are from here. I was born in Virginia. I moved back and forth. But to answer, is that Mr. Nobody asking that question?
Yeah, that was Nobody.
Yeah. I'm looking at my neighbor's Klan flag right now.
Oh, my God.
Jesus.
At your neighbor's what?
Klan flag, he said.
Klan flag. Literally open. Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, what were you calling about tonight?
So I said yesterday that I think that a large part of what's going on in Ukraine is a power grab to keep us from defending ourselves. And I want to call out, I guess, the 43rd president of these ununited states. He got really up in arms in, I guess, 08, 07.
43 was Obama.
Is that Bush?
Yeah.
Was Obama?
No, I'm talking about Obama. Is he not? Is Obama 43 or 44?
I don't know. I thought Trump was 45, but I don't pay close
Trump
attention.
was 45.
Well, George W. Bush was definitely 2007, 2008.
Yeah, so that would be Bush would have been 43 then, because Obama came before Trump.
Right.
Well, anyway, Bush or Obama, while he was on campaign,
It's easy to confuse them because they are basically the same person.
They are basically the same person.
Anyway, what about him?
They just come in different colors.
Yeah.
Just don't tell the people of Georgia.
Which one? State or country? But
go ahead.
No, he called out China for installing sensor software on all the computers.
Mm-hmm.
And what y'all are talking about right now is censorship. They're doing it in the name of war. They're doing it in the name of national security. They're doing it in the name of decency. No, they wanted a reason to do this, and now they have their reason. I'm sorry, but the same government...
Well, hold on. Before you go on, have you heard anything about the U.S. government censoring RT? Because it is happening in Australia, and it is happening in the EU. We'll get to the EU story in a moment, but I have not heard about the
I don't
US.
think the U.S. government would. I mean, they're crazy, but there are certain lines that it's just not worth it for them to cross.
There's still that whole free speech thing in play here to some extent.
I mean, do you really see a big difference between Australia and America?
Oh, Lord, yes.
Yes.
In Australia, all of the living creatures are trying to kill you. In America, it's pretty much just the government.
Are you saying that America is safer than Australia?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here in New Hampshire, we have the right to bear arms, and you don't have that in Australia. That's one major difference. Obviously, there's some cities.
Isn't New Hampshire the safest state in the U.S. as well?
Yeah, it ranks up there with Vermont, where they also have the right to bear arms, but not quite as good of rights in Vermont.
So I'm definitely safer here than in Australia.
Yeah, New Hampshire is absolutely one of the safest places on the planet.
What is the most oppressive thing in New Hampshire? Let me ask you that real quick.
The state.
The
one that arrested us, yeah.
You're like you have the right to bear arms. I assume you have the right to smoke weed.
No, it's decriminalized here, so they'll leave you alone for it.
You have
days.
the right to smoke it, but not to be in possession of. Now, when I say this, I mean the legal right. Of course, you have the moral right to do anything that doesn't encroach on the rights of others, but you have they'll leave you alone for smoking it, but if you have a large quantity, then they'll bust your balls.
You can do psychedelic mushrooms for spiritual purposes.
Really?
Well, you can do that in Georgia.
Oh, is there a Supreme Court?
You can also get lynched, apparently.
Is there a Supreme Court decision in Georgia about that? Because as far as I know, the Oklahoma North American Church has really only identified New Hampshire as where there's been a Supreme Court case about that.
There is precedent for maybe not psilocybin, but there is precedent for what happens inside of a church building. Like in the state of Georgia, cops cannot go into a church building without the permission of the executor, officer.
I highly doubt that.
I will send you a video.
Are you saying they can't get a warrant to search a church building in Georgia?
If they want a warrant, it has to come from the Attorney General's office in Atlanta, and they're not writing.
So they can search your church building.
They're not writing that warrant because.
Don't tell the Catholics.
They're trying to get a warrant for, and they've been trying for years, over snake-toting Baptists, because they want to remove the snakes. And they have...
To protect the Baptists or the snakes?
To protect the children that have been bit by the snakes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, you are giving me a headache.
Well, I guarantee you that if they, or to allege that you've got a bunch of marijuana in your church, they're going to get a warrant and they're going to search it.
They can't for the Rastafarian Church in Atlanta.
Really? Okay, I'd be interested in hearing the details of that case.
Yeah.
The Rastafarians will not give me marijuana unless I sign their thing. I'm not signing their thing because I don't believe their stuff.
Gotcha.
But if you sign their document, you can sit on their back porch or on their balcony and smoke as much weed as you want and wave as cop cars, and the cops get really frustrated about it.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
But,
Thanks for the heads up.
But no, I look at all of what's going on right now is power grabs. The last couple of years have just been power grab after power grab after power grab, and it's taking freedom away from the people. And I think every time we look at something, the question is, how does this affect personal freedom? If the answer is negatively, which it is most of the time, you fight to the death over it. Honestly, I
don't know that everything is worth fighting to the death over. I mean, certainly there's a line, but I mean, if you want to say the right to smoke pot, you want to fight to the death of that, I'm just going to call you a moron. It's not worth dying over.
Most people tend to agree with you, obviously, because there's no one fighting to the death over that.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you call it when LAPD raids a Compton home and shoots a bunch of people?
Murder?
They're killing each other. They're killing each other over weed.
No, cops are killing people over weed.
Yeah, no one's killing the cops back over weed.
Oh,
it's a war on drugs, not a war
Drugs
where the
have declared war on the police.
Yeah, if the drug cartels actually wanted to fight back in the war on drugs, then the cops would have a really difficult time. But the drug cartels seem to be okay with just sacrificing some of their troops from time to time.
They make more money this way
and replacing them with other ones. Stephen, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160. I'm curious about this Rastafarian church that he's talking about in Atlanta. He had called last night and was very critical of the Free State Project and ultimately made the claim. I'd asked him, well, how many libertarians got elected down there? And he claimed there were 3 of them. And, of course, he's not – I tried to check one of his claims. He mentioned one woman specifically. And I looked her up. She's an activist with the Libertarian Party in North Georgia. She's running for office, but I could not find any evidence that she has ever held office. And you would think that if you were running for office, there would be some kind of evidence, or like if you had supposedly won in 2014 state rep in North Georgia, that I don't know, some newspaper or some website would have acknowledged that.
Yeah, there'd be something.
Not to mention that it would be, one would think, on your Wikipedia entry, that it would be
or
on
Ballotpedia
your campaign website.
Wasn't there? It didn't say it on her campaign website. It did not say, "Oh, I'm the former, state rep from 2014." Didn't say that at all. So I don't know.
See, I would be saying that if it was me.
Like, he's not here to talk about it tonight, so maybe it wasn't fair of me to bring it up without him on the line, but I couldn't figure it out, and I looked. There's more coming up here, 603-283-6160. The fact is, if you want to be a successful libertarian, you got to move where all the libertarians are, and that's New Hampshire. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The first round of talks between Ukrainian and Russian officials ended today with an agreement to meet again. But the Russian bombardment of Ukraine is continuing, with horrifying stories emerging of civilian deaths and an indiscriminate military campaign to topple the government of President Volodymyr Zelensky. It's cost scores of lives in Kiev and the northeastern city of Kharkiv. President Putin told French President Emmanuel Macron that he wants Ukraine to recognize Russia Russian sovereignty over Crimea and agree to become a neutral state. Vasily Nebenzia is Russia's ambassador to the United Nations.
Today, President Putin spoke to President Macron, and he listed those conditions that we demand from Ukrainians. And they are well known, as I said, demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, commitment to its neutral status, not to join NATO and not to move weapons to our borders.
President Zelensky responded by signing membership papers for the EU, and the European Union says it will consider Ukraine's application. In Moscow today, financial disarray, the ruble collapsing in value, the stock market closed, the central bank raising interest rates as high as 20% after Western sanctions threatened to paralyse financial activity. In Brussels, efforts to head off the impacts on Europe, as FSN's Rebecca Bunden explains from our bureau there.
EU energy ministers have actually been meeting today here in Brussels to discuss how to diversify away from Russian oil and gas supplies, how to deal with any price shocks which they are expecting. They can deal with this in the short term, they can deal with some short-term shocks, but the problem is the longer term. How will they manage those issues?
President Biden spent 80 minutes on the phone today with Western leaders. We may not hear from him in person until his State of the Union address on Tuesday night. But at the State Department, spokesman Ned Price.
Diplomacy at the barrel of a gun, diplomacy at the turret of a tank, that is not real diplomacy. We are ready and willing, just as our Ukrainian partners are, to engage in real, in substantive, in genuine diplomacy in order to see if we can find a way out of what is a needless, brutal conflict.
In other Ukraine developments, FIFA and UEFA suspended all Russian teams from all competitions. The UN says more than 500,000 Ukrainians have fled the country, and many more will soon follow. And Britain's regulator is expanding its review of Kremlin propaganda channel RT, already banned throughout the EU. In other news today, the US is sending what it calls an unofficial delegation to Taiwan, a move sure to irritate China, and the UN said today some global impacts of climate change are now irreversible. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, a look at Russia's invasion of Ukraine from the vantage point of the Baltic. After a weekend in which the EU, for the first time, decided to supply lethal weaponry to a country under attack, Germany committed to spending more than 2% of its GDP on defence, and Britain said it would support any private citizens who wanted to go to Ukraine and fight on Kiev's side, there are growing signs that Vladimir Putin has succeeded only in uniting the West. Riho Terras is the former chief of the defence staff in Estonia. He says NATO may enlarge even further as a direct consequence of Vladimir Putin's aggression.
I don't think he believes that West has shown the strength in the first hours of the combat. But today, even Germany has agreed on weapon deliveries to the region. The best person to unify NATO and the Western world has been Putin himself by really pushing. And Sweden and Finland, there is a slight discussion, but they were really not applying for NATO. But I guess today the governments are really thinking that they should.
Less than a week after it began, it is already evident that Russia's murderous onslaught against Ukraine is changing the world order in ways that 7 days ago were unthinkable. The main news again, a first round of talks between Ukrainian and Russian officials ended today with an agreement to meet again, but the Russian bombardment of Ukraine is continuing, with horrifying stories emerging of civilian casualties and an indiscriminate military campaign to topple the government of President Volodymyr Zelensky. And the US is sending what it calls an unofficial delegation to Taiwan, a move sure to irritate China. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. And that is the latest Feature Story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Everyone in a bustling Chinese parade is attempting to elude pursuers. Newly discovered cave paintings suggest early man was battling a lot of inner demons, and a xylophonist is shredding it. This Tuesday, FBI officials disclosed details of a disturbing al-Qaeda plot to just kick back, relax, and savor the inevitable collapse of the United States. Intelligence agencies confirmed the massive coordinated plan involves terrorist cells across the globe, training specifically to take a load off an unwind as America's political infighting, class divides, moral indolence, and environmental self-destruction gradually tear the nation apart.
Our righteous warriors will devote our time to relaxing and really soaking in the infidels' self-destruction. America's cities will be reduced to ruins. The economy will come to a standstill. And we, the Blessed of Islam, will kick back, put our feet up, and enjoy the show. It's going to be great.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever you want. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And joining you in the studio, you've got Ian.
Aria.
And nobody.
So we'll talk to you about whatever's on your mind. We just had a gentleman call in and claim that there's a Rastafarian church in Atlanta where people are just openly able to smoke cannabis, and that the government wishes they could do something about it, but I can't find it. I cannot find any information about this supposed Rasta church.
I mean, it sounds like a rumor that high school kids tell each other, there's this Rastafarian church. We can go join it, man. All we got to do is sign their sheet of paper. Then you find out that, there's no truth to it whatsoever. It's just a bunch of myths that high school students spread to each other. That's what it sounds like.
Now, well, if there is evidence of it out there and some listener can find a reference, we'd love to see it.
Yeah, I would love that too. I did find this, and that is that Atlanta, along with several other cities in Georgia, has passed a local decriminalization ordinance.
Oh, good for them.
So it doesn't say, this story from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, it doesn't specify what that entails, but it presumably means that it is less of a punishment in Atlanta than if you get caught elsewhere in the state, where under current state law, the punishment for simple possession could be up to 1 year in jail or a $1,000 fine. So like much of the South...
So that's standard misdemeanor.
Yeah, so like much of the South, there hasn't been much decriminalization of cannabis on a statewide level for... I don't know, have you guys heard of any of the southern states doing that? Me neither.
I think Tennessee has medical.
Unless you consider Arizona the South, because I think Arizona did a legalization or decrim.
That's the Southwest.
Yeah.
So, let us know if you can find this mystery Rastafarian church in Atlanta. I'd love to hear the story about it. But meanwhile, we go to Ukraine, or not Ukraine, where... Don't laugh. We had a lady call from Ukraine.
I know. I was on.
Yeah, so maybe she'll call back. Who knows? But Ridley is wanting to talk about the Ukraine. Ridley, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, I think first some Ukrainians will object that you call it the Ukraine. I think it's supposed to just be referred to as Ukraine.
Yeah, I still have that old habit. I mean,
isn't the Ukraine like the mountainous region or something, and Ukraine itself is the country?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
I hate to be politically correct. But yeah, like if you were like in Croatia, you could talk about the Krajina. It's just a region, right? It's not a nation state. So, but with Ukraine, you call it the Ukraine. It just sounds like you're referring to like a mountain range or something like that. So, although there are not very many of those in Ukraine, but anyway, I've been noticing some things about the war that other people seem to be missing. The first thing is it's so senseless what they're doing. It seems like the only reason they could be doing it would be to provide some sort of diversion for China to invade Taiwan or something like that.
When you say they, are you referring to the entire conflict in Ukraine?
Yeah, the conflict in Ukraine. My suspicion before it even started was that all this business in Ukraine is to distract the United States while China does the real war and takes Taiwan. But
I don't think China needs the distraction. I mean, if China wanted to invade Taiwan, I don't see any reason why they need Russia to run,
interference.
Yeah. And China's China. They're bigger and they're tougher than Russia.
I think they still need it. If they were already prepared to take Taiwan, they probably already would have done it. So this has been something that's been holding them back. And this could be a way around that.
Well, something definitely held Russia back. I mean, there's a reason they waited until the day after the end of the Winter Olympics that were being held in China. They didn't want to ruin China's big day. So as soon as that was over, they invaded the very next day.
Well, yeah, those two countries do, tend to get along at least, but it would be pretty crazy to see them go up against one another. I don't know if I would necessarily say China would best Russia in that one. I mean, they're both fairly militaristic nations.
Well, if they fought each other, I don't know, I don't think that China needs Russia to run interference for them.
No, I don't think so either.
The other thing is that I'm sort of a student of the Spanish Civil War. And of the Bosnian War. And what's different about this one is it does have a lot of similarities, but this one, the Spanish and the Bosnians did not have support from the international community really at all until very deep into the war. The public opinion support, I mean. And the Ukraine situation, the world is just aghast and immediately has taken sides with Ukraine. That's a big difference. That's going to really hurt the Russians because, if you look at the Spanish Civil War and the Bosnian War, those are the countries that sort of came under attack were they almost won the war in both cases.
Well, it's going to hurt everybody. As was pointed out here, Cyprian, who's really following this closely, and his wife is Russian, by the way, but formerly known as Vin Armani, is a former co-host here on Free Talk Live. He points out on his Twitter today that Europe has cut Russia off from SWIFT. Now, not totally. They've only cut some banks and some individuals off from SWIFT. SWIFT, by the way, for listeners that don't know, is the international wiring system. You want to send an international wire to somebody in another country, it goes over SWIFT. And so they've cut Russia off from SWIFT, and that means that Europe can no longer pay for the gas that they've been getting from Russia. So
brilliant.
So wow. The story from CNN that he's citing
Does
here.
Does Russia take Bitcoin?
Well, they might start. But Russia, it says here, if Russia halts its supply of gas to Europe to retaliate against the punishing sanctions for its invasion of Ukraine, the region should still be able to make it through the next winter, but it won't be easy or cheap, according to a new report. So they're expecting their people to be paying this price, not just the Russian people, but the European people.
Well, that's the way sanctions work, and that's the reason why I oppose them. They
hurt the
by
people.
definition, target innocent bystanders. Hey, no, just pressure your government into making this go away.
It's hard to say how much impact that's really going to have, though, because the thing is, Russia is still going to want to sell its energy to somebody.
Sure.
So let's say it starts selling it to China. Okay, well, that means that China has to buy less from Australia, which means that,
Is Australia an oil producer?
Australia is a natural gas producer and a coal producer. They're a big coal producer.
Okay.
And that's actually, China kind of screwed itself by cutting off Australian coal earlier this year. In retaliation, I think, for Australia supporting the Hong Kong protesters. But the thing is, if the same amount of stuff is going into the world market, then it seems like the market should balance it out. It may be more expensive to transport it because, of course, efficient routes have been set up to handle the status quo. And the routes that handled the new status quo might be less efficient at first, but
well, it won't do the people of Europe any good for that oil and natural gas to go to China rather than Europe.
Well, the question is then, would China be buying less from other places?
Who knows? Well, time will tell. Ridley, what else did you want to say?
Russia had a cakewalk when they went into Afghanistan. I don't think they even had significant casualties at all at first, and yet they lost. But they're getting fierce resistance, obviously, in Ukraine. It's real similar to I think it looks a lot like the invasion of Poland in 1939.
The fierce resistance, where is this happening?
In Kyiv and in
In Kyiv? Because the reports are that Russia, even the mainstream media is reporting that the Russia government has surrounded Kyiv. Now, supposedly there's explosions been going on there today, but even the Russian propaganda ministry over at RT says they're offering the people of Kyiv safe passage if they would like to evacuate out of Kyiv.
Yeah, that's the other difference is that the Russians appear to be behaving more humanely than they did at Chechnya.
Stand by, Ridley. I want to. If you have more to say, stand by. We can bring you back here, and we'll continue the discussion. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. I mean, the truth is, there's a lot more video available out there to the average person to document what's going on. So maybe that's one reason why the Russians are being a little nicer than Afghanistan.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com. Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. It's bitcoin.com.
Anyone can publish on the internet, but not everyone is publishing material suited for online reading. According to the Yahoo Style Guide, it cautions that internet content has a few seconds, 3 or less, to encourage people to read more, to take action, or navigate to another one of your pages. So make it easy for readers to pick and choose. Isn't that the way you poke around online? Use short words, short sentences, short paragraphs, bulleted lists, and short pages. Front load what you write, putting the most important information at the beginning of headlines and paragraphs and sentences. Same goes for your keywords, what someone would likely type into the search box on Yahoo or Google. For more tips on communicating better online or in a job interview or everyday life, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
And you can join us here if you want. You can bring up whatever's on your mind. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian, Aria, and Nobody here on the program. We're going to go back to your phone calls and thoughts. And then coming up, the Ukrainian government is now requesting that cryptocurrency exchanges ban Russian customers or freeze their accounts. And
see, I understand where they're coming from, and I understand why they want this to happen, but this is fundamentally opposed to what I think cryptocurrency should do. Cryptocurrency is valuable because it would allow people in the United States to continue trading with the people of Russia and Ukraine in spite of these ridiculous sanctions.
Correct. And we're going to get into that, though, because it's pretty interesting, the responses from the cryptocurrency exchanges to these requests. First, though, we're going to go back to Dave Ridley from RidleyReport.com. Ridley, you were talking about the Ukrainian situation. I wanted to make sure you had a chance to get your full thoughts out, so continue, please.
We had started talking about the Poland invasion in 1939, and contrary to popular opinion, this was like, again, the Nazis were, the Poles were actually pretty effective against the Nazis, especially after the surrender, strangely enough. And that's what they're not thinking about. You know, people like when Afghanistan was invaded by the U.S., it was all about, in Iraq too, it was all about, you know, that first 6 weeks, you know, and people were not looking past that point. It was just a question of whether the enemy was going to surrender. And really the real battle takes place after the surrender.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, and that shows to a great extent the power of decentralization. I mean, the sitting government is centralized. You know who they are, you know, so you can capture them and make them capitulate, but you don't know who the resistance is almost by definition.
Right, and if you're planning to occupy the country, it's going to be, you know, they're going to keep attacking you, and you never know when, right?
Yeah, you know, if they are motivated, if they are committed to having you out, they will keep fighting. And certainly the Afghans and the Iraqis were committed to having us out. And I don't think the U.S. government ever completely pacified either Afghanistan or Iraq.
No, Afghanistan, they just waited out the United States government.
Yeah, well, and they also attacked them on occasion too. I mean, there was some pretty wild videos that the Taliban or whoever it was put together showing like truck bomb attacks and a variety of different attacks on the U.S. military there.
Mm-hmm.
Another difference that kind of leans in a different direction, though, from the others is like if you think about the Bosnian War and the Slovenian War, which preceded it. Serbs were massively out on the streets trying to stop it before it even started. And I don't remember anything like that happening in Russia. There is obviously quite a bit of demonstrating going on at great risk and with great courage, but that happened in Yugoslavia, and it didn't help much. Hopefully it will help in this case.
Well, go ahead.
A government's going to do what it wants to do, whether people protest against it or not.
Let them protest so long as they pay their taxes, was what the Reagan administration official said. Alexander Haig, I think, was his name.
Yeah, that was Haig.
Yeah. They did arrest apparently over 500 people, according to Reuters, at various protests across Russia in 39 cities, which, 500-something people sounds like a lot, but when you do the math, it's an average of 14 people per protest. But, that's not
still sizable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not turning my nose up at it, but, it's not a surprise that in Russia people get arrested for protest. I mean, that's been going on forever. It's not a free country.
It's a surprise when it happens in Canada.
Indeed. Ridley, thanks for the call tonight. Definitely appreciate your perspective on this and appreciate hearing from you. That's Dave Ridley from RidleyReport.com. In other related news to the situation in Ukraine, also from RT.com, so we talked to you about how Australia has a major satellite and internet television provider called Foxtel that has now prohibited RT from being on their platform. So they've taken them off their platform. In the EU,
you said this is an ISP as well?
I believe so.
Okay, so presumably they could just block access to RT.com.
They could. EU to ban RT and Sputnik. The European Commission President, you got to love this lady's name, Ursula von der Leyen, announced on Sunday that the EU will ban the Russian media outlets RT and Sputnik, accusing them of spreading, quote, harmful disinformation, unquote. She didn't specify whether this ban will apply solely to television broadcasts or whether RT and Sputnik's websites will be affected. In what she called an unprecedented step, von der Leyen announced that, quote, we will ban in the European Union the Kremlin's media machine. She said the state-owned Russia Today and Sputnik, as well as their subsidiaries, will no longer be able to spread their lies to justify Putin's war and to sow division in our union.
Why the hell not? Just spread your own lies to counter theirs and yin and yang. That's what you've always done.
CNN spread their lies, don't they?
Well, the CNN would be spreading the EU's lies. They wouldn't be trying to counter the EU's lies, likely.
Oh, well, that's true. Yeah. That's true.
Clearly they don't believe in their lies hard enough, right? Like they don't think their lies can detract the Putin lies.
Just lie harder.
Enough. So they want to ban instead. She says
they're lying as hard as they can.
And here's
I feel like they could do better.
Here's a disturbing statement. She continued saying, quote, we are developing tools to ban toxic and harmful disinformation in Europe. Look, if they can
disinformation now, not misinformation.
That's what she said. Yeah, if they can do it to Russia, they can do it to whoever they consider to be disinformation or misinformation or whatever. Anything
they've been doing that to us for the last 2 years.
Right. Anything that goes against the European Union's, standards or whatever, now they can shut them out completely. So if you ever thought the EU cared about freedom of speech.
Maybe they can, maybe they can't. There are ways to get through the Great Firewall of China.
Oh, of course. Where there's a will, there's a way. No doubt
about it. Yeah, but the issue with that is that most of the people in China don't want to look past the Great Firewall of China. They're not even curious about it.
I don't know if that's
how would
true
you know
or not.
that?
There's a really good book written by a former Chinese dissident who writes about this exact topic. It's like, when colleges secretly assign these students to, find me 5 Western news articles or whatever, and then they finally get curious about what's out there. But until someone sparks that, just like, it's just a wasteland out there. Who cares?
Von der Leyen's move comes a day after the Association of European Journalists called on the EU to implement a block-wide ban on RT and have its journalists removed. So it's not enough to ban the platform from broadcasting. They want to physically remove the reporters from their country.
Wow. So make sure that Russia can't find out what's going on in the EU. That's interesting.
Yep. So RT has previously faced censorship in Europe, apparently, and German regulators had banned their German language channel earlier this month. So before the whole Ukrainian situation went down. Immediately beforehand, she also revealed the EU will close off its airspace to all Russian aircraft and will supply Ukraine with weapons. So,
why are they wasting time? Just declare war on them if that's what they want.
The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. I think they want to manipulate them into a certain position first. More coming.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden spent 80 minutes on Monday conferring with Western leaders discussing the crisis in Ukraine and reviewing options for ending the conflict. The talks came after Ukrainian and Russian officials met for the first time since Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the invasion of his neighbor. President Biden is authorizing fresh weapons shipments to Kyiv amid growing concerns that the conflict could be intensifying. From Washington, FSN's Simon Marks reports.
The White House says President Biden has been deliberately quiet on Ukraine in a bid not to allow rhetoric to inflame the situation. At the State Department, spokesman Ned Price said the U.S. is still open to diplomacy with the Russians.
We are ready and willing to engage in real, in substantive, in genuine diplomacy in order to see if we can find a way out of what is a needless, brutal conflict.
But he said that could not take place down the barrel of a gun, a reference to Russia's indiscriminate military campaign in Ukraine that continued even as talks with President Zelensky's government were underway.
The U.S. has ordered the expulsion of 12 Russian UN diplomats from the country. Washington says they were involved in espionage activities. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The U.S. mission to the United Nations said it had been working on the move for several months and accused the Russian diplomats of being intelligence operatives. But it came on the same day that the United Nations General Assembly and Security Council both met to discuss the ongoing crisis in Ukraine, with the US and other member states condemning Russia's invasion of the country. Russian ambassador to the UN, Vasilina Benzia, addressed the expulsion at the start of the Security Council meeting, calling it a hostile move and a violation of the US commitments as host to the UN headquarters.
Facebook's parent company Meta says it's taking action to disrupt coordinated attempts to spread false information targeting Ukrainians. The social media company says it has removed 2 disinformation operations, one tied to Russia and the other to Belarus. FSN's Rachel Silverman has this report from San Francisco.
Facebook says it removed a string of about 40 fake accounts that linked to other social media services and websites and pushed negative information about Ukraine. The company also says it linked a hacking campaign aimed at Ukrainian military and public figures to a group that typically targets users via email and then tries to gain access to their social media accounts to post disinformation. They say they detected attempts to target people on Facebook to post YouTube videos portraying Ukrainian troops as weak and surrendering to Russia. The company says it has taken steps to protect accounts that were targeted and notify their users.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FS.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever's on your mind here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
Aria.
And nobody.
By the way, I want to say thanks to Damian Williams, who is a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS Patreon. Damian is a silver level supporter, which means he's doing at least $5 a month over at amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com. So you get some cool perks for helping us out. Advertise market support and promote Free Talk Live at amps.freetalklive.com. We go to more of your calls and thoughts, and then we'll get into the cryptocurrency exchanges who are being asked, quote unquote, to freeze out their Russian users. We'll get into that. But first, Galena is calling from Ukraine. She's calling from Kharkiv, the second largest city in Ukraine. And you called us last week toward the end of the week. Galena, welcome back. Mm-hmm. What did you want to share with our audience tonight?
I've heard some of your show tonight on online radio box, and I have heard Aria asking if Ukraine is mountainous. It's not all, but some part of it, like 10% is mountainous. Actually, many people went there on their cars because it's far from Russia and it's less chance of getting shot, something like that.
Okay. What else did you want to share?
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we got you loud and clear. You sound great.
Yeah.
Okay, super. So we still have some bombing here, some shots, maybe today even more than usually, the explosions. But
now,
at
hold on. When
night
you say
it's
you've got
quiet.
bombing here, what do you mean? What is being bombed in Kharkiv, where you are?
So I'm not sure if it's actually bombs, but just some explosions that are happening outside the city. That's what I hear from my spot. And,
Do you know if there are any military bases in or around Kharkiv, the Ukrainian military? Do they have any bases nearby?
Yes, a lot. Lots of them, even more than usually.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's possible
More
that
bases than usual?
People, we have now many volunteers who really want to help, and they make like groups of people defending Ukraine, something like this.
Have you seen any Russian troops in your streets?
No, I haven't. Me personally, I haven't.
Gotcha. All right. So you're saying you can hear some explosions, but you've not yet personally witnessed any fighting going on. Is that true?
Yeah, me personally not. But I know that in north area of my city, I've seen a video yesterday or like today that something was like dropping from the sky, falling on some streets and fire and like burn. Fall and burn. I'm not sure what that was, but like people were filming it from their windows, like shouting, like "Come on, let's go!" So this was the one video I've seen.
Interesting.
And
So
also,
could you describe it a little bit, little more? Like when you say it fell from the sky and burned in the streets, was it a large something that was burning, or were there multiple things that were dropped that were burning?
yeah, multiple things that were dropped that were burning.
Like napalm?
Sometimes.
She may not know what that is. Do you know what napalm is?
No.
It's a chemical. Go ahead.
Yeah, napalm is basically gasoline and paraffin mixed together so that
it burns a long time.
Burns
right?
and it sticks to things.
Maybe. I'm not sure what that was.
Do you was it something that was catching things aflame? Was it being dropped onto buildings? Were buildings being set on fire, or did it just end up in the street that you could tell?
I think it ended up on the street, maybe on some like very low one-floor buildings, because I don't remember really. I don't remember. I would find that video. Maybe I would share it on Telegram.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Great. I wish I could be on Telegram. But are you on it again? Nobody? Are you back
I'm on Telegram,
okay.
yeah.
Do we still have the Free Talk Live chat room there? And are people still
yeah,
in that?
it's actually there.
Okay, good.
It's getting a little spammy. I was actually going to ask you about being made an admin of it.
You
again.
are the admin. You're the one who created the room, if I recall correctly.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if I still am, but I'll check.
Unless you've changed your account, then you still should be. But yeah, Galina, if you want to check that room out, it's what, at Free Talk Live? Is that what it is? Do you recall? Nobody?
Yeah,
I do not.
It's FTL Public Discussion.
FTL Pub. Okay, so you're already in there. All right, cool.
Discussion.
Well, keep your eye out for that, will
Yeah.
you, nobody? See if she pops that in there with the video of the firebombing or whatever that was.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try to
definitely.
find it.
All right,
I
cool.
mean, you can always post it to social.freetalklive.com as well. where
Yeah, that'd be
Ian
great.
and I can see it.
It'd be great to have you on there at social.freetalklive.com. So I'm glad to hear that things are relatively quiet for you there. I mean, they might be a little, noisy as far as the explosions coming from outside the city, but thankfully for you, at least, no explosions in your immediate vicinity, and no gunfire is happening in your immediate vicinity. So I'm glad to hear that you are relatively safe, all things considered.
Yeah, I am safe yet, and I'm actually not following many news because I want to have my peace of mind and not to go crazy with all that information. Because some people, they are
Obsessed over it?
Yeah, they're obsessed. They're like very anxious
Well, plus it's not good information anyway. So really, it's probably better off you just follow your eyes and ears and any trusted friends that are actually witnessing things that you can say for sure really did happen, because some of the videos that are being passed around are not real. At least they're not from recently. They're from years ago in some cases.
That's what we learned during COVID. If it wasn't for the media, just looking around, living your life, no one would have ever known that there was a pandemic happening.
Exactly. Galina, thank you for the call tonight. Was there anything else you wanted to share with our audience tonight?
Last time you asked me about the draft. Actually, my boyfriend, he is not going there. Like, he stays home and he avoids coming out of his apartment because he knows that some people can really take him to the military, dress them, and put him on the field. So yeah, some people who really don't want to go to war, they just stay home.
That's a good plan.
Yeah,
I support him in that. Thank you, Galina. Feel free to call us with further updates. Hopefully things will still continue to be mostly unremarkable for you, and I appreciate hearing from you tonight. Thank you.
Definitely.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll look
Bye.
forward to your post in the Telegram when you get around to that. Certainly appreciate it. So there you go. There's a call from the second largest city in all of Ukraine, Kharkiv, which is actually basically next door. It's kind of northwest of the two states or provinces, or whatever you want to call them, that have declared independence, the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. So she's right there in the hot zone, supposedly.
Yeah, I thought the city that she was in had already fallen.
No,
according to the media, I thought
there's no city that I'm aware of, at least, has quote unquote fallen. Supposedly,
Kyiv been taken over by the Russians or whatever.
Supposedly, Kyiv is surrounded right now by the Russians.
Right,
but that's not the same thing as a takeover.
Right,
and if she hasn't seen a single bullet being fired from her position living in the city. So I'm going to go ahead and say there's no takeover going on here. And it does sound like the Russians are targeting military targets. Now, there have been some claims of bombs hitting apartment buildings or whatever, but who the hell fired those? We don't know.
Yeah. And of course,
it was probably Assad out of Syria.
When the U.S. Is supposedly targeting military targets, they tend to hit some weddings and such. So, it could well be accidental.
That happens too. There's more coming up here. You can share your thoughts. 603-283-6160. You can bring up your thoughts. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
You're privileged to drive the road. You must follow the laws.
No, I don't have to.
You're going to double park and you're going to make a left-hand turn in front of a cop?
Can I respond to you here, Barbara?
Go right ahead.
I'm not going to run a red light in front of a cop because he has a gun and is willing to hurt me, but I've run plenty of...
Wrong. He's not going to hurt you. He's going to give you a ticket.
Oh, but if I decide not to pull over, what will he do?
Well, you're not obeying the law.
Barbara, I don't obey arbitrary words written down by strangers. I obey natural law, Barbara. That means if I do something, I expect consequences will come from that, sometimes good, sometimes bad.
You run a red light, somebody comes around and you kill him.
I would never run a red light like that. When I run a red light, I stop first, look around, make sure no one is in danger, and then I go through.
Oh, you are such a phony.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can't do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring Simon to the rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa, hey, who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't gonna make it.
Wait on account. Now. Wait a minute.
Whoa.
Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me? Because you're scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and phones are open here if you want to join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You know, I actually just happened to have a story pulled up tonight from the Western media. And again, this is a propaganda war. Yeah, there appears to be some shelling going on, allegedly. Like, the people living in Ukraine, as our last caller pointed out, are hearing explosions. There's not a lot of video coming out as far as actual fighting going on. She says she hasn't seen a single Russian troop.
It is curious. I mean, they supposedly Ukraine got their internet access cut off, so Elon Musk was like, "Hey, you have Starlink now," or whatever. But still,
it was only brief, according to Galina, who called. Same girl that just called. She called last week. We asked her about the internet status, and she said it was off for like part of a day or something like that, but it was back.
Yeah, there's no videos or pictures circulating social media about this that I've seen.
There's very few, and a lot of the ones that you do see circulated are fake. There was another one, or not fake, or there's old. They're like not applicable to this conflict. There was another one I saw of a bunch of alleged Russian paratroopers coming down, like an overwhelming number of paratroopers,
like Red Dawn type stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And nope, that didn't happen
here. Was it from the movie
here.
Red Dawn? They're like, "Hey guys, look, we saw this happen."
It wasn't, but it was. I saw that one elsewhere. It was from another, training exercise or something like that.
Could have been an Alex Jones skit from 1999.
And then apparently there's some footage from a video game that's been being passed around called Arma 3 or something like that.
Is that the one with the plane battles?
Something with planes. I haven't watched the actual footage myself, but I did see that one. It's getting passed around as though it's
the non-actual footage.
Yeah. But this story from the Western propaganda, the Associated Press, says Russian forces shelled Ukraine's second largest city today.
Huh.
So we just spoke to someone who's in Ukraine's second largest city.
It is the second largest city, so it's possible that the shelling happened in a part of the city in which she didn't find herself. But
I mean, if you lived in New York City and New York City was being shelled, wouldn't you know? I mean, you wouldn't have to rely on Western news outlets to tell you that. You would have a friend of a friend or something who was like, "Yeah, man, I was totally there when bombs started falling from the sky."
The claim is video supposedly come out of Kharkiv with showing residential areas being shelled, with apartment buildings shaken by repeated powerful blasts. Flashes of fire and gray plumes of smoke could be seen. Footage released by the government from Kharkiv depicted what appeared to be a home with water gushing from a pierced ceiling. What looked like an undetonated projectile was on the floor. Authorities in Kharkiv said at least 7 people had been killed and dozens injured. They warned that casualties could be far higher. And, of course, the Russian military is denying targeting residential areas despite abundant evidence of shelling going on.
And 7, I mean, there were 6 people stabbed in the New York subway last weekend.
Really?
So, yeah.
Didn't the American military kill like 19 at a wedding in Afghanistan or something?
Yeah,
if not more.
yeah, they did.
Yeah. So, again, who do you believe in this situation? I want to say something else about Galina, and who I appreciate her phone calls. But the first call that she made, I want to make it clear, she didn't sound like she was a Russian apologist at all in that first phone call. Like, the answers that she were giving were very pro-Ukraine. She loves her country, et cetera, and I don't remember all the details of the call, but I did not come away from her call thinking, oh, this is a Russian plant at all.
Sure.
Right.
So, the fact that she said today she hasn't seen any Russian troops and hasn't witnessed any actual fighting was interesting. I didn't expect her to say that, but that's what she said. So, you want to weigh in here? You can. The number is 603-283-6160. So let's shift over to the crypto aspect of this situation. We know that cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, got a lot of publicity when the Canadian government started cracking down on the fundraisers for the Freedom Convoy in the last few weeks, and now crypto's in the news again in relation to Ukraine. There's a few different aspects. One, the Ukrainian government has posted Bitcoin addresses publicly and asked for people to send them Bitcoin. So that's one thing. They're raking in the Bitcoin. Apparently.
Even for Ukraine, don't send a government.
No, don't do
Bitcoin.
it. They're just going to use it to, draft their people and force them into slavery.
Like this, Galena's poor boyfriend stuck in his apartment because if he leaves, they're going to press gang him into joining the military against his will.
And so they're raising money with Bitcoin. At the same time, the Ukrainian government is also apparently requesting, because they can't mandate it unless they're a Ukrainian Bitcoin exchange, they're requesting that Bitcoin cryptocurrency exchanges stop serving customers in Russia. And this is according to Coindesk.com. The Mikhailo Fedorov, Ukraine's vice prime minister and minister of digital transformation, has asked, quote, all major crypto exchanges to block addresses of Russian users, unquote. He tweeted his request, explaining that it is, quote, crucial to freeze not only the addresses linked to Russian and Belarusian politicians, but also to sabotage ordinary users.
Yeah, I don't like the sound of that.
That's what he said.
That's an evil politician for you.
Yeah.
Punish the
among
innocent
other things, you might be cutting off the accounts of the people who are protesting against the Ukrainian invasion in Russia.
Right. A lot of Russians have Ukrainian friends and family, and they are against this war.
Yeah. So I hope that does not happen.
Well, the good news is there's a little bit of good news, and that is Binance, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, cryptocurrency exchanges on the planet, says they have no plan to freeze user accounts in Russia. Quote, we are not going to unilaterally freeze millions of innocent users' accounts. Crypto is meant to provide greater financial freedom for people across the globe. To unilaterally decide to ban people's access to their crypto would fly in the face of the reason why crypto exists, which is actually what you said
earlier. Thank you. That's so true.
That's surprising to hear from
I gained some respect for Binance.
Let me take a little bit of that away. Here's the rest of the statement. Quote, however, we are taking the steps necessary to ensure we take action against those that have had sanctions levied against them while minimizing impact to innocent users. Should the international community widen those sanctions further, we will apply those aggressively as well, said Binance.
So basically, you can't wire money to Binance from a Russian bank?
Crypto should be Switzerland. Completely neutral. Trade is a human right, and you don't lose your human rights because you live under a bad government And that has to be my position because my position is that all governments are bad.
They are.
So,
well, crypto is that, but these centralized exchanges can't be that because they're centralized.
Yep, and they're easily targeted by the states in various different countries. And so, you got Binance here saying, yeah, well, we like crypto, and there's the reason it exists, and we kind of are, giving you some, props.
But we're scared of government.
But we know what'll happen to us if we don't do what we're told. And so right now they're saying, well, it's not an international sanction, so we're going to keep talking tough. But as soon as the sanction comes down, they're going to crack down on their users. So it's a heads up. At least people have a chance. If you are a Russian person and you have, or anyone for that matter, and you have assets on an exchange, get them off of the exchange as soon as you can. If you're done trading, like if you put something on the exchange to trade and you've traded it, get it off the exchange. And the interesting thing is, it's not just Binance saying that. A couple of weeks ago, toward the end of the protests in Canada, there was news about the couple of American exchanges, Kraken and Coinbase. Their CEOs came out and attacked the Canadian government's decision to seize funds from their people's bank accounts.
Oh, well, yeah, sure. They weren't the American government doing it.
But to their credit, they are saying things like this. This is a quote from Jesse Powell. He's the CEO of Kraken. He says, in reference, he posts a video of the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, who's the Minister of Finance. She's like the head finance goon of their version of FinCEN, basically, over in Canada. And he talks about her freezing accounts. He says, captured being the key word. Crowdfunding platforms are now regulated under the Canadian Terrorist Financing Act. Do you see where this is going? Please do not fund causes directly from custodial wallets. I'm sure freeze orders are coming. Withdraw to non-custodial before sending.
Wow.
Nice.
Even Brian Armstrong, the
Consider
CEO...
how evil Coinbase is?
Yeah. Well, that was Kraken.
Oh, that was Kraken. They're slightly less
Here's
evil.
Coinbase. Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, the guy who spends time in Washington, D.C. trying to nose up with, get close to politicians. He says, quote, concerning to see stuff like this happening in any country, especially such an economically free place like Canada, self-custodial wallets are important, he says.
Not your keys. Not your crypto.
Coins. Yeah, there's more coming up here. We can share your thoughts are welcome. You can join the show at 603-283-6160. And this is Free Talk Live, Hour 3 coming up. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden spent 80 minutes on Monday conferring with Western leaders discussing the crisis in Ukraine and reviewing options for ending the conflict. The talks came after Ukrainian and Russian officials met for the first time since Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the invasion of his neighbor. President Biden is authorizing fresh weapons shipments to Kyiv amid growing concerns that the conflict could be intensifying. From Washington, FSN's Simon Marks reports.
The White House says President Biden has been deliberately quiet on Ukraine in a bid not to allow rhetoric to inflame the situation. At the State Department, spokesman Ned Price said the U.S. is still open to diplomacy with the Russians.
We are ready and willing to engage in real, in substantive, in genuine diplomacy in order to see if we can find a way out of what is a needless, brutal conflict.
But he said that could not take place down the barrel of a gun, a reference to Russia's indiscriminate military campaign in Ukraine that continued even as talks with President Zelensky's government were underway.
The U.S. has ordered the expulsion of 12 Russian UN diplomats from the country. Washington says they were involved in espionage activities. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The U.S. mission to the United Nations said it had been working on the move for several months and accused the Russian diplomats of being intelligence operatives. But it came on the same day that the United Nations General Assembly and Security Council both met to discuss the ongoing crisis in Ukraine, with the U.S. and other member states condemning Russia's invasion of the country. Russian ambassador to the UN, Vasilina Benzia, addressed the expulsion at the start of the Security Council meeting, calling it a hostile move and a violation of the US commitments as host to the UN headquarters.
Facebook's parent company Meta says it's taking action to disrupt coordinated attempts to spread false information targeting Ukrainians. The social media company says it has removed 2 disinformation operations, one tied to Russia and the other to Belarus. FSN's Rachel Silverman has this report from San Francisco.
Facebook says it removed a string of about 40 fake accounts that linked to other social media services and websites and pushed negative information about Ukraine. The company also says it linked a hacking campaign aimed at Ukrainian military and public figures to a group that typically targets users via email and then tries to gain access to their social media accounts to post disinformation. They say they detected attempts to target people on Facebook to post YouTube videos portraying Ukrainian troops as weak and surrendering to Russia. The company says it has taken steps to protect accounts that were targeted and notify their users.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, a look at Russia's invasion of Ukraine from the vantage point of the Baltic. After a weekend in which the EU, for the first time, decided to supply lethal weaponry to a country under attack, Germany committed to spending more than 2% of its GDP on defence, and Britain said it would support any private citizens who wanted to go to Ukraine and fight on Kiev's side, there are growing signs that Vladimir Putin has succeeded only in uniting the West. Riho Terras is the former chief of the defence staff in Estonia. He says NATO may enlarge even further as a direct consequence of Vladimir Putin's aggression.
I don't think he believes that West has shown the strength in the first hours of the combat. But today, even Germany has agreed on the weapon deliveries to the region. I think the best person to unify NATO and the Western world has been Putin himself by really pushing. And Sweden and Finland, there is a slight discussion, but they were really not applying for NATO. But I guess today the governments are really thinking that they should.
Less than a week after it began, it is already evident that Russia's murderous onslaught against Ukraine is changing the world order in ways that 7 days ago were unthinkable. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The U.S. authorizes fresh weapons shipments to Kyiv amid growing concerns that the Russian-Ukrainian conflict could be intensifying. The U.S. orders the expulsion of 12 Russian UN diplomats, saying they were involved in espionage. And Facebook's parent company Meta says it's taking action to disrupt coordinated attempts to spread false information targeting Ukrainians. That is the latest Feature Story News. Ira Spitzer.
This week, badly shaken researchers reported observing an osprey stalking, killing, and devouring an adult male lion in what is being called a massive food chain shakeup. Confirmation of the 3-pound marine bird consuming the 400-pound feline has biologists scrambling to determine the new predator-prey connections between the planet's billions of organisms.
We seem to be experiencing some sort of cross-species dietary free-for-all.
Scientists say that the killing of the healthy, full-grown lion by a typical osprey specimen has lent credibility to recent reports of a deer seen grazing on a nest of squirrels in Wisconsin, as well as a claim made by a group of Japanese fishermen who say they witnessed 300 million krill devouring a 40-ton humpback whale. In other news, NASA acquires the moon for an upcoming Kennedy Space Center exhibit. A radio DJ invites the whole town to some bullshit, and assuming the many universes theory of quantum mechanics is accurate, the review you've just seen will remain relevant in another reality for all eternity. For more, visit theonion.com/newsbeat.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones open here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's Ian.
How are you?
And nobody.
We are heading into the third hour of the program, and of course, the phones are open for you to bring up whatever's on your mind. We'll keep talking a little bit here about the Ukrainian government gang, because they're all gangs. Putin's a gang leader. This other guy in Ukraine, he's a gang leader. And so the Ukrainian government gang is telling cryptocurrency exchanges that they want them to block the addresses of Russian users, to freeze Russian users' accounts, and further...
I mean, that's
not
bad.
just the gang members, but ordinary Russians.
Yes, every person who is a Russian citizen on these platforms, presumably if they're living in Russia or maybe even if they're just living somewhere else, the Ukrainian government would like them banned. What were you saying, Arya?
I mean, that's bad. If they do it to the Russians, then next they'll do it to the Australians or the New Zealanders or the Americans or whoever.
Well, and the CEO of Kraken makes a really important point about that, and I'm gonna bring it back around to that here in just a moment. But let's go to your phone calls and thoughts. Vernon's first up here in New Orleans. You're on Free Talk Live, Vernon.
So, honestly, if I had to read a story from RT or from AP, I think I'm going to probably find the AP one a little bit more believable, just because they're not funded by the Russian government. I personally don't think they have any sort of a propaganda approach to their news.
Have you not been paying attention in the last couple of years?
Apparently not. I mean, apparently, there must not be any reputable news sources. I mean, so
I would say there are none.
How do you define a reputable news source?
Your own eyes and ears at this point. I mean, yeah. I mean, I agree with you, nobody. There are no reputable news sources.
I mean, I don't know about AP, but I know that Routers came out and published some.
Reuters.
Reuters came out and published some very questionable stuff, and Jimmy Dore went up and looked up the CEO of that news service, and turns out he's a director at Pfizer.
That's correct.
And he's also a fellow of the
World
Economic Forum, which are the proponents of the Great Reset, who want to take all your property so you'll be happy.
Yeah, and I've seen reports,
which wouldn't make me happy.
You're talking about Reuters. I've seen reports where AP and Reuters have basically the exact same wording. I mean, it's just like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so I don't trust any of these bastards.
Yep.
But it seems like RT, though, as far as the Ukraine coverage, this is just my own personal opinion because I've been listening to Free Talk Live. It seems like that is a more reputable source than any Western news sources. Did I say that correctly, or did I say that incorrectly?
I don't believe any of them.
No, there's no reputable source. I'm presenting RT here because you will not hear RT being presented anywhere in the mainstream media. And the same reason why we played videos from ISIS a decade ago to get their propaganda position clear, rather than relying on the U.S. media's interpretation of their propaganda.
Yeah, but that's not an endorsement of them. I mean, there are things that RT tends to tell the truth about sometimes, and mostly they're American internal things because, you know, they want havoc in America, and, you know, if Americans knew the truth, there would be hell to pay in America.
Gotcha. Well, I was just trying to confirm that a government-funded news source was not more reputable than a private news source in your all eyes. You're saying that it's all not reputable. So
correct.
That makes sense.
But
to
at
me.
least with RT, I know what I'm getting into. I know exactly where the bias lies with RT. I know it's Russian propaganda. AP has managed to fool people into thinking that there's something besides, you know, a propaganda arm for the state.
Yeah, and even in the United States, even in the world of fiction, you will see that the U.S. government paid producers of fictional TV programs to insert storylines that were supportive of the war on drugs, for example. That was something that they weren't telling us that was happening at the time, but it was definitely happening, and they've since copped to it. So, you know, everything is propaganda if it's widespread. And that's sad but true, and I lament that there's nobody out there. I mean, there's a few individuals out there that I trust. I trust Glenn Greenwald. I trust what the heck is his name? Ben Swan. You know, those are people that I think at least are telling the truth as they believe it, although I don't agree with them on all their interpretations of facts. But these big, anything large will be co-opted by the government.
No doubt about it. Vernon,
one last
anything
thing,
else?
chronic. Y'all have the chronic caller problem again with the New Mexico people and Sarah. It's so much every single night. It's just crazy. I say ban those chronic callers just temporarily. Thank you all.
I wouldn't complain. I'm sick of Sarah.
Well, guess who's coming up next?
Yay!
Do you want to talk to her, Vernon?
Hold on, because Vernon, you call enough that when Ian said Vernon, I knew it was Vernon from New Orleans.
He doesn't call as often as
How
Sarah.
many Vernons are there, though? I mean,
there's
Vernon
only one from New Orleans that calls this show.
Yeah.
Vernon, did you hang up? He hung up. I was going to give him a chance to talk to Sarah. Like, for all the people that talk trash about Sarah, I've given. There's one guy who was talking trash about her on the online or whatever, and I said, hey, she's on hold. If you want to call in and talk to her, give her a piece of your mind directly.
God knows she needs some mind.
I don't know who it was. I don't recall. But here she is. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm glad that I do have people that do listen to me.
Yes, you do.
Whether they like it or not.
That is how you look on the bright side, though. Good job, Sarah.
Well, yeah, but I'm getting people's attention, and therefore people are listening. And I think
that doesn't mean you're persuading them, but you are getting their attention. That's true.
Right. And it's very important what you guys have said. It's what truth and what media source that you want to choose to believe. And obviously, since I'm for the Russian side, I happen to believe the people that support the Russian side, which of course...
Right, it's like picking a religion. You just pick the side that you want to believe, and you believe whatever it is they say.
Why pick a side between psychopaths?
I agree with that. It's crazy.
But the thing is, it's the same thing with life. Yeah, the life, reality, and truth is whatever you want to believe and whatever you make for yourself. You know? Yeah. So the state of
now that actually brings up an interesting question.
No matter how hard you believe that you can jump off the top of that building and live, you probably can't.
But that's true. But I mean, for most things, that
it's probably true.
Well, I was listening to about the Dan Bongino show today, and when he had one of the speakers, that I think he was he was one of the American colonels or something. I don't know, that analyzed the war policy right now. And of course, Dan Bongino was poking fun of him that he was actually favoring the Russians, or he was favoring being nice to the Russians. The comment that he made was that the Russians, when they're invading Kiev right now, they're very, very careful. They're very, very careful not to shoot the civilians. If there's, children and women around or elderly, they're very careful. And then they're willing to, the Ukrainian soldiers, they want to give them a chance to surrender so they can spare their life. You know what I mean? Because
this is not your typical war. That is for sure. At least not in the way that we've known them in the past. If indeed, the Russian government is invading Kyiv, and I'm not sure if that's actually happening at this point, but thank you for the call tonight, Sarah.
Surrender or die sounds pretty normal for war for me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. A lot of times it's just die.
They're right. They're not bombing these people's neighborhoods as much as the AP wants you to believe that they are. They actually told the Kyiv people they can leave, and they gave them a way out. There's more coming up.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp, is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open. You can join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian, Aria, and nobody in the studio tonight, and you can join us online anytime at freetalklive.com. We mentioned earlier to Galina from Ukraine when she called in that she could post whatever it is she wanted to share with us and our audience on our social media platform. Now, she is in our Telegram room, which is great, but Aria, you and I are prohibited from being there by our bail conditions.
Unfortunately.
In the Crypto 6 case, sadly. But it's great that she's there. But our social media platform, we are allowed to be on. You can go to social.freetalklive.com. Actually, we're allowed to be on the social, but nobody is not, because he's still prohibited from posting on social media.
Oh.
But we're not allowed in the Telegram, and nobody can be in the Telegram. So
this all makes perfect sense. And I'm sure there is some sort of insane troll logic to it.
We're going to go back to your phone calls.
Their madness runs but north-northwest, but when the wind is southerly, they know a hawk from a handsaw.
Let's go to Olivia. She's in Arizona. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, I'm glad Ari's back. I'm glad Galena called back. And I just have to say I like Sarah's calls just because it's one of those things, like, she's always there. You can count on Sarah being there. And I'm really curious what Sarah looks like. Like, I'm trying to picture her in my head, and I go back and forth. But
she did tell us once she has a grandmother from North Korea, so she may have a bit of an Asian appearance, but we don't know for sure. We've never seen her.
Oh, okay, because I've been picturing, since she's from New Mexico, I keep picturing her as, like, maybe Hispanic or Native American, but then I also kind of picture her as Leslie Ann Warren from the Mel Brooks film Life Stinks. So,
wow.
I don't know. Anyways, I called...
Whatever happened to Leslie Ann Warren? Does she still have a career?
I don't even know who that is.
I've never heard of her.
Oh, wow. Yeah, she was in a bunch of movies in the 1980s. Anyway.
Rogers and Hammerstein, Cinderella, like, she's really pretty.
What else did you want to share tonight?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about either recycling or cannabis, and I can't decide which one, so you guys can pick.
All right, well, what's the cannabis news, since we did mention drugs earlier on the show?
Drugs!
Yeah, so cannabis got legalized in Arizona in 2020, and I'm proud to say that I voted to legalize it.
Right on.
And, but this was from the Tucson Weekly. I think it was from 2021, but House Bill 2298 got signed. It's $25 million has been dedicated to marijuana research over the course of 5 years, but other states do that too. But what makes it interesting in Arizona is that it's the first state to require medical cannabis funds allocated for FDA-controlled trials. So this might move the needle to help change public policy, because these are going to be FDA randomized controlled trials to test marijuana as
hold on.
Now, what is an SDA trial? Is
FDA.
that FDA? Okay.
Well, we have a drug warrior as both the president and the vice president, so I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Hold on, just to clarify what you're saying, though. You're saying revenue from the medical cannabis program or the recreational program is going to this fund?
You know, I didn't read where the funds were coming from, but I would guess one or both of those.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to be doing what kind of studies?
They're going to, so the funds are going to, actually I think it does say medical cannabis funds, be allocated only for FDA-controlled trials objectively studying cannabis as a potential medicine for treating pain, autism, PTSD, and other illnesses.
Well, I'm going to say this to what you said, Aria, and that is that under both Obama and Trump and Biden, the trials continue on psychedelics when it comes to MDMA, when it comes which isn't really psychedelic, but when it comes to psilocybin mushrooms or some of these other things that they've been doing some pretty amazing early level kind of trials. They are getting FDA approval for these things.
Yeah, but they've been going on since at least 2010.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. During Obama and during...
Yeah, but they haven't moved us any closer to national legalization.
No, of course not. Of course not. But I'm just saying, the fact that Biden is in office, I don't think is going to put a freeze on these trials.
No, I just meant I don't think it'll lead to legalization or decriminalization.
No, the federal government gang is not even close. I mean, they keep on putting bills up. So, they're trying to do things.
Well, they have to eventually, right?
You would think so. Maybe in our lifetime, it's at some point, if we don't secede first.
I think that the legislation has to be some good because our governor vetoed it the first time, and then they sent it back, and he finally signed it. He's this anti-cannabis fascist, of course, but yeah, Governor Ducey's no good, but it finally got signed. I'm hoping something good comes out of it. At least there will be studies to point to say, hey, you're being ridiculous. Look, this works.
Well, there have been
And the
studies for a
FDA
long time on cannabis. I mean, that's why a lot of these states have decriminalized it for medicinal or for recreational purposes, or even legalized it, because there were just this overwhelming avalanche of evidence that this stuff helps people. But yeah, having more studies certainly can't hurt, unless, of course, they're politically directed to have negative results, which could happen. But thank you, Olivia, for the call tonight. I appreciate it.
It worries me that they specify FDA-directed studies because, of course, the FDA, for example, with ivermectin has come out and said, oh, well, yeah, there have been a lot of studies that show that ivermectin works, but none of them have been performed under our control, so they don't mean anything.
Wow. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we continue here. I said that we're going to share another quote from the Kraken CEO. This is a CEO of a cryptocurrency exchange who has been asked, quote unquote, by the one of the boss men in the Ukrainian government gang. Mikhailo Fedorov has asked that crypto exchanges block addresses of Russian users. Here's what Jesse Powell had to say in a 6-part tweet. Quote, I understand the rationale for this request, but despite my deep respect for the Ukrainian people, Kraken cannot freeze the accounts of our Russian clients without a legal requirement to do so. Russians should be aware that such a requirement could be imminent. And then he says hashtag NYKNYC, which I suspect means not your keys, not your coins.
And that's the truth.
He goes on to say that requirement...
Yeah, but to hear that from the CEO of Kraken...
Yeah,
it's amazing.
He's got some more things that he's going to say here. That requirement could come from your own government, as we have seen in Canada, in response to protests, bank runs, and attempts to flee the country. It could come from foreign states like the U.S. as a weapon to turn the Russian populace against its government's policies. For what it's worth, he says, I would guess the vast majority of crypto holders on Kraken are anti-war. He says Bitcoin is the embodiment of libertarian values, which strongly favor individualism and human rights. In Canada, crypto...
What the hell happened while I was gone for the last month?
In Canada, crypto was the only financial rail left for those who oppose the regime. He says, our mission at Kraken is to bridge individual humans out of the legacy financial system and bring them into the world of crypto, where arbitrary lines on maps no longer matter, where they don't have to worry about being caught in broad, indiscriminate wealth confiscation. Sometimes the hardest thing about having power is knowing when not to use it. Our mission is better served by focusing on individual needs above those of any government or political faction.
With great power comes great responsibility.
The people's
Spider-Man.
money. The people's money is an exit strategy for humans, a weapon for peace, not for war. And he's got one more post that I'm going to share with you coming up here, and it's a real zinger right at the end. More coming up here. This is Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeen.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeen.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeen.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeen.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden spent 80 minutes on Monday conferring with Western leaders discussing the crisis in Ukraine and reviewing options for ending the conflict. The talks came after Ukrainian and Russian officials met for the first time since Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the invasion of his neighbor. President Biden is authorizing fresh weapons shipments to Kyiv amid growing concerns that the conflict could be intensifying. From Washington, FSN's Simon Marks reports.
The White House says President Biden has been deliberately quiet on Ukraine in a bid not to allow rhetoric to inflame the situation. At the State Department, spokesman Ned Price said the U.S. is still open to diplomacy with the Russians.
We are ready and willing to engage in real, in substantive, in genuine diplomacy in order to see if we can find a way out of what is a needless, brutal conflict.
But he said that could not take place down the barrel of a gun, a reference to Russia's indiscriminate military campaign in Ukraine that continued even as talks with President Zelensky's government were underway.
The U.S. has ordered the expulsion of 12 Russian UN diplomats from the country. Washington says they were involved in espionage activities. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The U.S. mission to the United Nations said it had been working on the move for several months and accused the Russian diplomats of being intelligence operatives. But it came on the same day that the United Nations General Assembly and Security Council both met to discuss the ongoing crisis in Ukraine, with the US and other member states condemning Russia's invasion of the country. Russian ambassador to the UN, Vasilina Benzia, addressed the expulsion at the start of the Security Council meeting, calling it a hostile move and a violation of the US commitments as host to the UN headquarters.
Facebook's parent company Meta says it's taking action to disrupt coordinated attempts to spread false information targeting Ukrainians. The social media company says it has removed 2 disinformation operations, one tied to Russia and the other to Belarus. FSN's Rachel Silverman has this report from San Francisco.
Facebook says it removed a string of about 40 fake accounts that linked to other social media services and websites and pushed negative information about Ukraine. The company also says it linked a hacking campaign aimed at Ukrainian military and public figures to a group that typically targets users via email and then tries to gain access to their social media accounts to post disinformation. They say they detected attempts to target people on Facebook to post YouTube videos portraying Ukrainian troops as weak and surrendering to Russia. The company says it has taken steps to protect accounts that were targeted and notify their users.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones open. You can join the show if you want. Take control of the airwaves, 603-283-6160. Talking about how the Ukrainian government gang is demanding that cryptocurrency exchanges around the world, big ones like Kraken, that they freeze Russian accounts. And the CEO of Binance said we're not going to do it unless we have some sort of legal requirement to. And then that's what Kraken's CEO is saying here. They're not going to do that unless there's a legal requirement. And so, Kraken's not based in Ukraine. So if Ukraine says, well, we're legally requiring it, they still don't really have to do anything about it. However, if the United States government, where they are based, or the EU government, for instance, is to put those kind of restrictions on Kraken, then they will step to and they'll do whatever it is that they're told to do, despite all of the language here that is very libertarian. I mean, we're reading this guy's posts.
It's surprising.
His name is Jesse Powell. His handle on Twitter is @JessPow, JESPOW. In a 6-part post, he says that their mission is to bridge individual humans out of the legacy financial system and bring them into the world of crypto, where arbitrary lines on maps no longer matter, where they don't have to worry about being caught in broad, indiscriminate wealth confiscation. But as he's pointed out, that's only if you get your funds out of the exchange.
Right.
And, to their credit, and even the Coinbase guy, the CEO of Coinbase, saying, essentially, not your keys, not your coins, get your coins off of the exchange, saying that wallets, self-custodial wallets, are very important. So I'm really happy to see that despite the fact that these men are running centralized exchanges that are the targets of government regulation, where they absolutely can and will freeze your funds if they're ordered to.
Coinbase is begging for government regulation.
They are. Absolutely. But I'm still happy to see that they're encouraging people to take their funds off the exchanges. So, I mean, that's good to see. It warms my heart a little bit. But here's the best part of what Jesse was posting. Everything he's posted so far on this thread was great. And here's part 6. He says, besides, if we were going to voluntarily freeze financial accounts of residents of countries unjustly attacking and provoking violence around the world, step 1 would be to freeze all U.S. accounts. Zing!
Truth.
He's not wrong.
He says, as a practical matter, that's not really a viable business option for us.
Yeah.
So, glad to see that.
That was a big hunk of truth he bit off.
Yeah, I'll give you one more from him. This was in response. He posted this on February 17th in response to Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. That's the top financial thug in Canada. When she was talking, she had said, and we played this clip when it happened on the air. She said, quote, "The names of both individuals and entities, as well as crypto wallets, have been shared by the RCMP with financial institutions, and accounts have been frozen, and more accounts will be frozen." And so he's responding to that quote. He says, "Due process is for plebs. Might makes right in Canada. If someone dissents, you just confiscate their wealth, revoke their licenses, exclude them from the financial system, and kill their pets. No need to debate the law, policy, or even rights when you have a monopoly on violence." Tell me this guy's not a libertarian.
Sounds libertarian to me.
I mean, he's straight up as libertarian as, I mean, from the comments he's made here, he's like anti-borders, anti-police, pro-freedom. This guy is pretty libertarian sounding. So I wish I could still be on the Kraken exchange, but they booted me off.
I wish I could be on any exchange.
Right? Yeah, they will still do exactly what they're told to do, but I do... appreciate at least the attitude. I appreciate the sentiments.
That's how I feel about it. I don't want to say this guy's. I mean, he sounds libertarian, sure, but so do lots of people on Twitter. I mean, there's a big difference between sounding libertarian and doing and being libertarian.
Well, that's just the thing. If you're doing a cryptocurrency exchange in the United States, they're going to come down on you if you don't do what they say. Like they're going to raid your house next.
And not just that, but they're going to shut down your business, which means that all of your customers get screwed.
Correct. There's one other point of this story that's important. The story from CoinDesk.com originally about how the Ukrainian finance or vice prime minister Mikhailo Fedorov wants all major crypto exchanges to block Russian users. Again, some of the major exchanges are saying, nope, we're not going to do that. But D-Market, which is a Ukrainian-born digital assets company that works as an exchange to trade virtual items from games on any platform, has accepted the request. The company tweeted to say, quote, "Ukrainian-born startup D-Market cuts all relationships with Russia and Belarus due to the invasion of Ukraine. The registration on the platform is prohibited for users from Russia and Belarus. Accounts of previously registered users from these areas are frozen."
I'm sure all 5 customers of theirs from Belarus and Russia are very upset.
In response to the move, Fedorov, the government goon, tweeted, quote, "Funds from these frozen accounts could be donated to the war effort, Nowadays, Robin Hood's bravo, he says.
Oh, so they want to steal it and use it against them.
Yeah, that's what he wants.
Government.
Yeah.
Wow.
He said, oh, well, this company actually did what I asked. Okay, well, why don't you just hand over all the money to us? And again, remember, this same government gang is putting out Bitcoin addresses. They're getting donations from these people that are buying all the war propaganda. Last number I heard was over $37 million worth of Bitcoin had been donated to Ukraine in this effort.
Why would you donate money to a government?
Because people are buying this stuff hook, line, and sinker. They really believe that Ukraine is good government and that they're fighting against Hitler. That's the new thing. People are putting Ukraine flags on their social media profiles. It's the new mask. It's the new signaling that you support freedom by supporting this government gang that's conscripting,
trying to steal people's money and conscript people and use that money to fight wars with.
That's right.
That's not supporting freedom.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the government that ostensibly, according to critics, was put into place by the CIA in a 2014 coup. So that's supposedly who's running Ukraine. It's a puppet government for the United States.
I would believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, the United States government does that sort of thing all the time.
They sure do. So
and that would explain why Russia is so upset about it.
Well, Russia's upset because the U.S. had said at the end of the Soviet Union, one of the reasons why they're upset, the U.S. government said, oh, yeah, we're not going to expand NATO. And then they did.
Well, of course they did. What? And I don't believe that Russia or the Soviet Union could ever have possibly believed that.
Indeed. But what do you do?
That's true.
So lots of broken promises when it comes to governments of the world. And I agree with you. Why anyone would voluntarily support these people is just absolutely bewildering. But it goes to show the level of brainwashing and and how people will still, even some people who should know better, even some people in the libertarian group out there are buying this stuff.
It happened with COVID as well.
Some of the people who didn't buy the COVID propaganda are buying the war propaganda. It's like, hello, what? It's the same people who are lying to you about COVID. Why would they be telling you the truth now? The same people who lied to you about COVID lied to you about things before COVID. Like, how much lying has to go on before somebody finally says, oh, yeah, I'm going to start questioning things that I'm told by the mainstream media?
These are libertarians. They already hit that point and started questioning things. But then something hit the right chord with them. Where there was
war. Some people just love themselves a war. They love to take sides. They love it when the ships go zing, zang, boom, right? Like, they just love it.
And look, I'd be okay with this if, like, the Russian army and the U.S. army or the Ukrainian army, they just got into this empty field and just shot at each other. I'd be totally okay with that. But that's not what they're doing.
No, definitely not. The phones are open here if you want to join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. So, again, you got the cryptocurrency exchange bosses in the U.S. saying to people, don't keep your coins with us. If we're told to freeze your account, we're going to do it. So don't keep your coins on our exchanges. So kudos to them. It's good advice.
Let's have heads of state just fight to the death.
That I would watch it.
Yeah,
I might bet on that.
I'd pay pay-per-view for that.
All right, so more coming up. You can join us here. This is Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Looking
for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones open in the remaining moments here. Enough time for you if you want to dial in now at 603-283-6160. Tonight it's Ian,
Aria, and nobody.
And coming up in about 4 months from now, we're going to be out at Rogers Campground, or at least I hope to be at this point. I can't say for sure that I'll be there, but
someone will be.
It's looking better for my odds. I wasn't able to go last year at all due to the bail conditions in the Crypto 6 case, but those have loosened a little bit since then, and they may loosen a little more by the time Fork Fest rolls around, which is June 27th through July 3rd. But as you point out, Aria, Free Talk Live will be there for sure. We've got the hotel rooms, which you can't get now if you're trying to attend the Porcupine Freedom Festival. The entire campground is sold out. But Fork Fest, you can probably still get a motel room.
Oh wow, really? Already?
Yeah. Fork Fest is not as highly attended like the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which is now a sold out campground at this point. That there are still some tickets for the Porcupine Freedom Festival, so you can still acquire tickets. And if you can still get a ticket, you can probably find somebody that's willing to share a tent site with you or something like that. So, if you show up... I think
good. So they're overselling tickets again, basically.
Well, I mean, the campground can handle more than it says that it can, right? Like your typical campsite...
I mean, that's why they closed all the bathrooms
according
last year.
According to the rules, you can't have more than 2 people or 2 tents or whatever on a campsite. But they can easily hold more than 2. I mean, there's no problem. So the campground can hold more people.
I usually sleep in my car.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean the bathrooms can only hold so much, and that's why they do bring in some trucks with some bathrooms on them for the Porcupine Freedom Festival. But
that's true, they do that.
Yeah, so go to if you want to check out the Porcupine Freedom Festival, I recommend it. It's an amazing event, and it's bigger than it's ever been. Check them out. But the week after that is June 27th through July 3rd. We're going to be at the 6th annual Fork Fest, and we'll be at the Porcupine Freedom Festival too. But we're going to be there. It's at the White Mountains of New Hampshire at Rogers Campground. You don't need a ticket to attend Fork Fest. It is a decentralized libertarian camping event. And all you got to do is get your RV site or your camping site or a motel room with Rogers Campground June 27th through July 3rd. And if it's like every other year at Rogers, they're going to have an amazing fireworks show that weekend. Somebody was asking in the Fork Fest chat room today, oh, when does Fork Fest kind of peter out? And it's like, well, if you're comparing it to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, it's going to seem petered out right away just because a lot of people leave after the Porcupine Freedom Festival. But there are also people who come just for Fork Fest.
There are.
If you don't stay till the end, you don't get to see the fireworks show. And to me, that fireworks show is pretty awesome. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it again. Check out forkfest.party to learn more about the event. It's an unofficial website because it's an unofficial event. Head over to forkfest.party and learn more. We go to Jack. He's calling from Washington State. You're on Free Talk Live, Jack.
Yeah, I was going to talk about something else, but I've been watching the news.
Oh, you never want to do that.
No, they're playing the same stuff over and over again. So even though I'm more conservative, but I'm thinking this may be like a new world order, like complete total manipulation of the earth going on, the beginning of something. Because I've seen the same videos for like 7 days. And I've been watching Fox News off and on since probably 9/11, you know. That's when a lot of people started watching the news. Ironic, right? But it's the same stuff. And I haven't seen any troops. I haven't seen any bodies.
You're talking about Ukraine? You're talking about the
the
Ukraine situation?
Yeah, Ukraine, Russia. I just haven't seen what they're telling me.
You could just as easily be talking about COVID. I haven't seen any bodies.
Yeah, there weren't many bodies there either.
Yeah. Isn't that bizarre?
No, it's not bizarre.
Really.
No,
Makes
that's
perfect sense.
That's the way things are now. It's a propaganda war, and that's how it's going to be. This is a battle for your mind.
And don't they confuse us by telling us we have so much communication, but we really don't.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of communication. It's just muddled with a bunch of misinformation and lies by state actors who have an interest in brainwashing the populace.
I mean, less than 2 hours ago, we were talking to a woman who lives in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and thank goodness.
Or we think we were.
Well, sure.
Right. So she claims.
Yeah. Something's going on. I'll tell you, like...
Yeah, the government's lying.
QAnon type of weirdness-ish. I'm not saying that, but something like that. You know, something's not right with what's going on right now.
It's the same old story. The state is telling lies to get people behind its whatever its current plot is. And so it's still not clear exactly what their intentions are with Ukraine, right? Because no other country has quote unquote joined the fight, although they are sending weapons in at this point. So what their long-term goal isn't clear, but what is clear is that it will benefit the military-industrial complex. That's one takeaway you can guarantee out of all this, is that the military-industrial complex and the bankers are going to walk away with more money in their pocket.
Wouldn't it be ironic if Putin's actually a good guy here?
He's not a good guy. There are no good guys in this situation.
Good guy in politics, but there are people that are suffering.
Yes, there are good people in Russia, and there are good people in Ukraine and Belarus and Poland, and there's good people who do not deserve to have conflict in their backyard or anywhere nearby, or have their loved ones drafted, or have their bank accounts frozen, or have their cryptocurrency accounts frozen by centralized exchanges. Those are the good people, and they're going to be the victims in this situation, and they are every time.
If you're noticing some of the more recent lies, it would be interesting. I mean, what's your feeling on 9/11? Do you think the government was telling us the whole truth there?
Well, you remember when the buildings first hit, there was only 2 buildings. If you do about, 15 minutes of research, literally, it's not conspiracy, buildings fell all around it. Why did they fall?
Yeah, Building 7.
You know what I'm talking about?
Why did Building 7 fall?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
Nobody can explain that. Office fires, supposedly.
What a load. Doesn't make sense.
CIA information supposedly was in there from the Bush.
Yeah.
But the Bush, from the senior CIA head of CIA or whatever that's called. Who cares? It's ironic.
Thank you, Jack, for your call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you. Let's go to Major Payne. He's in Michigan. You're on Free Talk Live, Major.
Yeah, well, according to the towers, it's just like when you go to trial, they give you a jury of your peers. Well, they blew the peers. Boom.
Is that a pun?
Dropping squad. What? When they blew the Twin Towers, they blew out all the piers underneath of it before the planes even hit.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's why it totally incendiary, right up the stack. It was all Bush 1, Bush 2. I'm going to finish the old man's business.
See, I don't know what really happened on 9/11, but I know that some of what they were saying was lies.
Of course.
That's
what they do.
There was a whole bunch of Middle Eastern hot dog vendors that used to hang out around the place, and none of them were there. Only 30% of the faculty got called in to the towers the day it was hit. They knew it was coming.
So you're saying the hot dog vendors were in on it?
No, the hot dog vendors got the word that they were going to get hit. And says,
okay, that's a claim I've never heard after 20 years now. That's a new conspiracy. Thanks for the call, Major. I appreciate it.
That's the first I've heard of that as well. I don't believe it.
Were these halal hot dogs?
Presumably.
But I'd rather have a halal hot dog than a haram hot dog, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I generally eat kosher hot dogs, and kosher and halal are pretty much the same thing. They're just, blessed by a slightly different religion.
So speaking of conspiracies, here's an update on a story that we covered before you left the show, Aria. It's Melania Trump's NFT. She put an NFT up for sale. There's a bunch of
very badly advised.
A bunch of media coverage about this, and it sold apparently, according to MSN.com, for 1,800 sol, which is the Solana, worth about $185,000.
And that's like a top 10 crypto now, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But apparently, according to blockchain analysts, it appears as though Ms. Trump purchased her own NFT.
No one else was going to buy that garbage.
I don't know. People buy Hunter Biden stuff.
This was supposed to be like her hat or a painting of the hat.
I think that's what it was. Yeah. Yeah. Something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, we could get into the details, but I just thought that was a hilarious detail that I'm glad I saw that story. Out of time for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. If you didn't get on with us, well, call us any night of the week. We're here 7 nights a week, 7 to 10 at night Eastern Time. You can join the show here on Free Talk Live, and we'll see you tomorrow night. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the